budget plan now being hammered out tonight by Kentucky's Senate after the House sent its recommendations that included tax increases. But with Republican leadership in the Senate opposing them, the question remains whether this plan could lead to comprehensive tax reform. Our political editor Chris Williams joining us with a breakdown of the budget proposal and potential. Chris?
Rachel, we've been hearing for months that the budget was going to be brutal. In January, Governor Matt Bevin proposed across-the-board tax cuts and zero funding for dozens of programs. The budget response that passed the House last night would return some of the funding, but the cost has many wondering if the deal can become a reality. Senate leadership voiced diplomatic optimism today and hinted that comprehensive tax reform could be on the horizon. House Republicans approved a budget that returned some funding to education, Veterans Affairs, and the state police. It also increased SEEK per pupil funding. To help pay for the changes to the governor's budget plan, they also called for an increased per-pack cigarette tax, new taxes on prescription opioids, and the end to a $10 tax deduction to working Kentuckians. Even some conservative Republicans scoffed at the new taxes. Speaker Pro Tem David Osborne defended the move.
We are still making massive cuts in this budget. This is still an incredibly austere budget. But part of being conservative is also being mature enough to make difficult decisions and address the problems that have been left to us by years of mismanagement.
So right now I'm not prepared to say where money will or won't come from, what cuts and or additions will and won't stay. They've sent us a dramatically different document.
Senator Christian McDaniel is his chamber's Republican budget lead. The GOP caucus has no appetite for tax increases. As for the rest of the proposal, he and others began weeding through that last night, and they remain hopeful.
I think there's going to be some things in it we certainly will be able to support. I was happy to see what they did, for example, with getting the state police back to where they were, some things with Veterans Affairs. So I think that we'll find some common ground on it.
Does this force the conversation about tax reform this session?
Not necessarily. I think the conversation could still happen, but certainly I don't think that this forces it. I think that tax reform is a look that when we take at it, it's going to be for 40 and 50 years. And so I'm not going to allow what we need to do in the next 3 weeks to determine the outcome of the next 5 decades.
Senate President Robert Stivers echoed that sentiment, saying he thinks comprehensive tax reform is possible this session, and that while the House budget proposal does not force the issues they brought up may be considered in any reform work. Chris Williams, WHAS 11 News.